hardtail mountain bikes represent many things to many people. They're lightweight, easy to maintain, and can greatly up the fun factor on otherwise mundane trails. But one of their most alluring traits is their price. The lack of rear suspension and the components and manufacturing complexity that go along with that means that you can usually get a hardtail for about $1,000 less than a similarly spec'd full suspension bike. These factors have led to a huge increase in their popularity over the last few years, and nowadays there's more dialed hardtails on the market than ever before. But just like their squishy counterparts, no two hardtails are made alike, and that can make it difficult to find the best hardtail for you. So in this video, we've chosen 5 of our favorite hardtail mountain bikes, all for less than $2,000. We looked at several factors when choosing the bikes on this list, including the manufacturer's reputation and reliability, frame geometry fit for the type of riding the bike is designed for, modern features, and of course, part spec. Lastly, keep in mind that this is by no means an exhaustive list of the great hardtails that are on the market. So if we missed one of your favorites, let us know what it is and why you like it down there in the comments. Now, on to our first award, which is the best all-around, do-it-all hardtail mountain bike, and the winner for that is the Trek Roscoe 8, which lists for $1,999 and weighs 29.9 pounds or 13.6 kilograms. The frame features generous chainstay and down tube protection, internal cable routing, ISCG tabs, and is UDH compatible. It's also available in 6 sizes, extra small to extra large, and can fit a claimed rider height from 4'9" all the way to 6'5". The smallest size, extra small, comes with 27.5-inch wheels, but every other Roscoe is going to come with 29-inch wheels. Moving on to the geometry, and this bike has a pretty slack 65-degree head tube angle. It also has a 74.7-degree seat tube angle, and in the size large, has a reach of 470 millimeters, a stack height of 644 millimeters, and chainstays of 430 millimeters across all sizes. Speaking to the trail bike intentions of the Roscoe, it's got a 140 millimeter RockShox 35 Gold fork in the front. I was impressed to see that the bike also comes with a pretty nice drivetrain with a SRAM NX shifter and cassette, as well as a GX derailleur. It also comes with some strong and reliable 4-piston Shimano MT420 brakes, a Trans X dropper post with 150 millimeters of drop on the larger sizes, and some tubeless-ready Bontrager lined comp wheels that have some pretty dang high engagement hubs, which is rare to find on a bike at this price point. Lastly, the Roscoe comes with some pretty beefy 29 by 2.6 Bontrager XR4 tires. All in all, the smart, well-rounded geometry paired with a pretty awesome part spec and the fact that you can pick up a Trek just about anywhere in the world means that we're going to have to give the Roscoe 8 4.5 out of 5 goats. Our only real drawbacks here is that it is on the upper end of our price category, and even with that, you're not going to get the nicest fork out there, and that dropper post could have a bit more travel on some of those larger sizes. But if you can afford it and you don't demand the most refined or tunable suspension products, then the Trek Roscoe 8 is a pretty solid option. Some other bikes to consider in this category are the Canyon Stoic 4 and the Orbea Laufey H30. Moving on then to our second award, and that is the best cross-country hardtail. And this one's gonna go to the Canyon Exceed CF5, which lists once again for $1,999 and weighs just 25.9 pounds or 11.7 kilograms. And a big reason for that low weight is that this is the only bike on today's list to have a carbon fiber frame. And that frame has some very clean internal cable routing. It actually goes through the headset, so if you're not into that, you might want to look elsewhere. And it also has a cool integrated seat post clamp that sits kind of underneath the top tube. Again, making this bike very clean and sleek and really speaks to the cross-country racing nature of the bike. And speaking of cross-country racing, you really see that that is what this bike is built for when you start to look at the geometry. The Exceed CF5 is available in 5 sizes, from extra small to extra large, and they claim that can fit riders anywhere from 5'6" to 6'3". Every one of these bikes rolls on 29-inch wheels and has a very steep head tube of 69 degrees. That's going to make the bike steer quickly, which is great for technical climbing and quick passes when you're, again, racing cross-country. Moving on to the rest of the geometry, it has a 75-degree seat tube angle, which is paired with a relatively short 455mm reach in the size large. The size large also comes with a relatively low 615mm stack height, and each size of the Exceed is going to come with size-specific chainstays, anywhere from 425mm to 435mm, to make sure the bike feels balanced regardless of your height. So we can see that XC Racing there in the geometry, and we can also see it in the part spec. The biggest thing here is the fork. It only has 100 millimeters of travel, and that's brought by the RockShox Recon Gold RL. The Exceed CF5 also comes with a 12-speed Dior drivetrain, some 2-piston Shimano SLX brakes, and a super dialed wheel set, the DT Swiss LN XC wheels. These tubeless-ready rims are wrapped in some fast-rolling 2.25-inch Schwalbe Racing Ralph tires that are also tubeless-ready. Lastly, as you'd probably expect from an XC race hardtail, the Exceed CF5 does not come with a dropper post. All in all, this is a purpose-built cross-country race machine at a pretty dang affordable price. And honestly, my favorite thing about this bike is probably the frame. It's super dialed, meaning if you wanted to buy a bike on the cheap and upgrade it as you go, you shouldn't have any issues putting some really nice parts on this bike. And for that reason, I'm gonna have to give it 4.5 out of 5 goats. My only real complaint is once again that it is toward the upper end of our price limit, and then also the fact that, yeah, it's a purpose-built cross-country bike. That means it's not gonna be quite as good on a trail ride or maybe just going out for a cruise with your buddies, but if cross-country racing is what you're into, it's gonna be hard to beat. Some other dialed cross-country bikes for you to check out under $2,000 are the Specialized Chisel and the Polygon Syncline C5. But if you're tired of hearing about bikes that have 100 millimeters of travel and are designed to go up hills, then you're gonna like our next category, because now we're talking about the best aggressive hardtail for under $2,000. And the winner here is the Marin San Quentin 3, which lists for $1,799 and weighs 32.8 pounds or 14.9 kilograms. The cool thing about this bike is that it's available in either 27.5 or 29-inch wheels, depending on your riding style and what you want to do with the bike. But for this video, we're going to be focusing on the bike that comes with those bigger 29-inch wheels. Keeping things nice and modern, the frame features fully internal cable routing and ISCG tabs. Moving on though to the geometry, and this is where we start to see the true enduro nature of this bike start to come out. It has a 64-degree head tube angle and a very steep 77-degree seat tube angle. This steep seat tube, combined with the fact that it's pretty short, means that you should be able to size this bike up if you want something that's going to be ultra stable for all your enduro racing. The size large has a reach of 470 millimeters, a stack height of 645 millimeters, and all the bikes across all 4 sizes, small through extra large, have 430 millimeter chainstays. Marin claims that between those 4 sizes, they can fit riders anywhere from 5'2" to 6'3". But now let's talk about the part spec, starting at the front of the bike with the Marzocchi Bomber Z2 fork, which gives the San Quentin 140 millimeters of travel. Drivetrain duties are largely taken care of by Shimano with a Dior shifter and derailleur and a Sunrace cassette. Slowing things back down again are some 4-piston TRP Slate Evo brakes, and the bike does come with a dropper post. It's going to get a 150 millimeter post on the size medium and a 170 millimeter post on the sizes large and extra large. Lastly, the San Quentin rolls on some tubeless-ready Marin rims laced to Shimano hubs that are wrapped in 29 by 2.5-inch Maxxis Assegai tires. And these aggressive tires really speak to the fact that this is not your everyday ordinary hardtail. It's meant to go hard. And that burly spec and the burly frame geometry to go with it is why we chose this bike as our winner for the best aggressive hardtail, and we're gonna have to give it 4.5 out of 5 goats. The only drawback to the San Quentin is similar to that of the Canyon Exceed we just talked about, and that's that it's purpose-built for aggressive riding. And the hardcore geometry and spec might be a bit of a hindrance on less technical, more flowing trails. But if you are on the market for something that's gonna go down fast, then the San Quentin 3 is gonna be hard to beat. Lastly, a couple other aggressive hardtails for under $2,000 that are worth your attention are the Rocky Mountain Growler 40 and that Orbea Laufey H30 I mentioned a second ago. Our fourth category that we want to talk about today is the best budget hardtail for under $2,000. This one in particular costs just $1,100, and that is the Cannondale Habit HT3. And at first glance, you would never guess that this bike was just a hair over $1,000. It's got internal cable routing, ISCG tabs, boost spacing, and some nice custom chainstay protection, which all in all give this frame a very high quality look and feel. And again, like the bikes we've talked about earlier, means that if you want to buy this bike at an inexpensive upfront cost and upgrade it down the road, you won't have any issues doing that. The Habit HT is available in 4 sizes, small through extra large, and should fit riders 5'1" to 6'5". Each of these sizes rolls on 29-inch wheels, has a 64-degree head tube angle and 76-degree seat tube angle, and long 440mm chainstays. This means that the Habit leans much more on the aggressive side of the spectrum, similar to the San Quentin we just talked about, than the cross-country side. So if you're looking for an affordable bike to ride gnarly trails, this one's going to be hard to beat. Lastly, on the size large, the Habit HT has a reach of 465mm and a quite tall stack of 653mm. Moving on to the part spec, and at the front of the bike, you're going to get 130mm of coil-sprung travel from SR Suntour with the XCR Boost fork. I would have loved to see Cannondale figure out a way to spec an air fork on this bike to decrease the weight and increase adjustability, but hey, for $1,100, you can't really complain. And speaking of not complaining, the bike has some pretty dialed Shimano 2-piston hydraulic disc brakes and a microshift Advent X drivetrain. Another thing that's rare to see on an $1,100 bike is a dropper post, and the Habit HT has one. Specifically, the Trans X post that has 120mm of drop in the medium and just 130mm on the large and extra large. Another big value boost for this bike is that it already comes with tubeless ready rims, specifically some WTB I-25 rims laced to Shimano MT400 hubs. You're not, however, going to be getting tubeless ready tires. Instead, you're going to get a set of 2.3-inch WTB breakout tires. Thankfully though, tires are wear items, and so once you wear through that first set, you can go ahead and buy yourself some tubeless ready ones and not need to worry about replacing your rims. All in all, the high quality frame with modern geometry and standards on a bike that costs just $1,100 is relatively unheard of. And for that reason, we're gonna have to give this bike 4 out of 5 goats. It's a bit of a bummer that you don't get a longer travel dropper post. That's probably something you're gonna wanna invest in later on, as well as a air sprung fork. But again, for the price, you really can't complain. So if you're looking for a value packed bike for maybe your first mountain bike or your first hardtail, then the Cannondale Habit HT3 is gonna be hard to beat. But there are a couple other good value bike options on the market for close to $1,000. Those are the Trek Roscoe 6 and the Norco Fluid HT2. But now it's time to move on to our last category, which is the best specced hardtail for under $2,000. Or in other words, which bike gives you the best parts attached to that frame. And the winner is the Commencal Meta HT All Mountain Race, which lists for $1,900 and weighs 29.5 pounds or 13.4 kilograms. The Meta HT has been around for a while and is a bit of a legend in the aggressive hardtail scene. This frame comes with full internal cable routing, chainstay protection, and is available in both 29 and 27.5-inch plus wheels. The Meta HT is available in 4 sizes, from small to extra large, which Commencal claims can fit riders from 5'2" all the way up to 6'7". The bike has a head tube angle of 65 degrees, a seat tube angle of 74 degrees, and some short 432mm chainstays. The size large has a stack height of 639mm and a pretty dang short reach of 445mm. And this kind of speaks to the fact that Commencal hasn't done a big update on this frame in a couple years. So if you want something to be a little bit more in line with a modern reach, you might need to go ahead and size up for this bike. Now though, let's talk about the part spec, because that is, after all, the category that this Meta HT won for. And we're gonna start with the highlight, which is the fork. It comes with a super burly Fox 36 performance fork. It also has a full Shimano Dior drivetrain and some 2-piston Shimano Dior brakes. Another big highlight to the spec is the wheels and tires. The Meta HT gets some Spank Spice rims with an internal width of 28mm, laced to Formula hubs. These tubeless ready rims are wrapped in some equally tubeless ready Maxxis Dissector tires, which are once again some of my favorites. I think you can't really go with a better option for a hardtail. They're grippy, but they're still lightweight and fast rolling and make for a ton of fun. All in all, that high-end burly fork, some really dialed wheels and tires, and really honestly a well-thought spec across the board is why we chose this bike as the winner for the best part spec on a hardtail. And for that reason, we're gonna have to give the Commencal Meta HT Race 4 out of 5 goats. The frame is iconic and beautiful, but sadly it is starting to show its age with that shorter reach number, so most riders will likely need to size up. The only other complaint I have is those 2-piston brakes, which are a bit undergun for that big burly fork, but hey, that's a lot cheaper to replace than a new fork or new wheels. So that's a wrap on our list of our 5 favorite hardtails for less than $2,000. Like I said at the beginning of the video though, there's a lot of other great bikes on the market, and I'm curious to hear which one is your favorite. You can let me know what that is down there in the comments, as well as if you have any questions on any of these bikes or really any hardtail. While you're down there, please go ahead and subscribe to the 99 Spokes YouTube channel. And lastly, remember that bikes are for everyone. Have fun out there.